What happens when the world's most feared predator strikes without warning? From a billionaire's tragic death off the coast of South Africa to a kayaker's final moments in Argentina, these shark attacks reveal the raw power and unpredictability of the ocean's apex predators. Witness the horror of a diver's deadly encounter in the Bahamas, a tourist's fatal mistake in Fiji, and a yacht race turned nightmare. Join us as we uncover 6 chilling stories of human encounters with sharks that ended in tragedy. In August 2021, billionaire tech entrepreneur Richard Klein, 45, and his girlfriend, model Alana Hayes, were vacationing on a luxury yacht off the coast of South Africa. Richard had made a name for himself in the tech industry, founding a successful company that revolutionized online communications. His wealth and success had earned him international recognition, but he was known to keep a low profile, preferring the quiet life of luxury and adventure. His love for the outdoors, especially the ocean, led him to spend a lot of his time on the water. Over the years, he had developed a passion for diving, often seeking new experiences in the deep seas and exploring the mysteries of marine life. Alana, a striking model in her early 30s, had been in the public eye for years. She was known for her beauty and grace, frequently appearing in fashion campaigns and magazine covers. However, she valued privacy above fame, and her relationship with Richard had been kept mostly out of the spotlight. Alana shared Richard's love for the ocean, and together, they enjoyed the luxury and peace that came with being on the water, far from the pressures of their public lives. On that particular trip, Richard and Alana were aboard a yacht, anchored just off the coast of South Africa. The yacht was a beautiful, state-of-the-art vessel with every luxury you could imagine, and it provided them with the perfect base for their getaway. Richard was an experienced diver, and had dived in many of the world's most famous locations, but he was particularly excited about snorkeling near an area known as Shark Alley. The name came from the fact that the waters were home to a large number of sharks, particularly great white sharks, known for their power and precision. Despite the name, Richard felt confident in his safety, as the yacht was anchored close to the shore, and he was familiar with the area's waters. That morning, Alana filmed from the deck of the yacht as Richard prepared to enter the water. He was excited, as he always was before a dive, eager to experience the ocean up close. Alana, while excited for him, remained on the boat, enjoying the peaceful surroundings and capturing moments of their vacation on camera. As Richard entered the water and began snorkeling, he had no idea that a terrifying encounter was about to unfold. In the shallow waters near the shore, a 19-foot great white shark, drawn by the presence of humans, silently approached Richard. The shark, known for its powerful hunting abilities, moved swiftly and quietly beneath the surface. Richard, unaware of the danger lurking nearby, swam closer to get a better view of the underwater life, unknowingly positioning himself right in the shark's path. Without warning, the shark struck with brutal precision, catching Richard by surprise. The shark struck with terrifying speed. Richard didn't have time to react. In one swift motion, the shark bit down with brutal force, its massive jaws closing around his body. The attack was so sudden that Richard barely had a chance to make a sound. Alana, still on the deck of the yacht, was filming the surroundings when she saw the flash of movement in the water. At first, she thought Richard was just adjusting his position, but when she saw the shark's massive body breach the surface, she realized with horror what was happening. The shark's bite was precise and lethal. In one powerful strike, it decapitated Richard, tearing his head from his body in a single motion. The lifeless body was dragged underwater, disappearing into the depths almost instantly. Alana screamed in shock and disbelief, her mind racing to understand what had just occurred. Her heart sank as she watched the water churn with the movements of the shark below the surface. The yacht crew, stunned by the speed of the attack, froze for a moment. They struggled to comprehend the situation, unable to react quickly enough. Alana continued to scream, but there was nothing they could do to stop the shark or recover Richard's body. The boat was positioned too far from the water's edge to intervene in any meaningful way. The crew scrambled to search the water, desperately trying to locate Richard's remains, but the shark had already vanished into the deep. The minutes that followed felt like an eternity for Alana. She could hardly believe what she had just witnessed. Richard, the man she had been so close to, was gone in the blink of an eye. She tried to process the chaos in her mind, but it was overwhelming. The silence after the screams was deafening as the reality of the situation settled in. The yacht crew was unable to recover any of Richard's remains, and by the time they called for help, it was too late. Alana was left devastated, unable to grasp the enormity of the tragedy. Richard had been an experienced diver, and he had trusted the water, believing in his knowledge and preparation. But even the most prepared adventurers can fall victim to nature's unpredictable power. Alana's life was forever altered by the brutal attack. She retreated from the public eye, unable to bear the weight of the memories. Her career as a model and public figure felt insignificant in comparison to the grief she carried. The images of the shark attack haunted her every waking moment, and she couldn't shake the memory of Richard being taken so violently. The tragic event led to increased awareness about the dangers of swimming in areas known for shark activity, even for experienced divers. The yacht crew and those close to Alana were deeply affected by the loss, and the event marked the beginning of a long period of grief and reflection. Alana chose to leave her public life behind, stepping away from her career to cope with the immense loss. The memory of Richard's death remained with her, and she found solace in her solitude, forever marked by the tragic moment that had taken everything from her. In August 2022, a group of experienced divers, including Sarah Hudson, set out on an exciting underwater exploration in the Bahamas. Known for its crystal-clear waters and beautiful marine life, the Bahamas is a popular destination for divers from around the world. Sarah, along with her dive partners, had been to many underwater locations before. They were all seasoned divers, accustomed to navigating the challenges of deep-water dives and unfamiliar environments. The group had come together for this particular dive to explore the famous underwater cave system, which was known for its unique beauty and its exciting but risky nature. Sarah Hudson, a skilled diver in her late 30s, had been diving for over a decade. She had earned her certification in advanced diving and had explored many different cave systems around the world. She had a passion for underwater photography, capturing the stunning beauty of the ocean's hidden treasures. Sarah was known for her calmness under pressure, her knowledge of marine life, and her ability to stay composed in challenging situations. She was the type of person who loved the thrill of diving into the unknown, but always respected the dangers that came with it. The rest of the group included her longtime dive partner, Mark Davis, a fellow seasoned diver who shared her passion for underwater exploration. Mark had been diving for nearly as long as Sarah and had spent countless hours exploring some of the world's most challenging underwater locations. There was also Amanda Lee, a marine biologist with years of diving experience who often used her dives to study underwater ecosystems and marine life. Rounding out the group was Ethan Miller, a diving instructor known for his meticulous planning and attention to safety during dives. On this day, the group was excited to dive into the famous cave system. They had spent weeks preparing for the dive, checking their equipment, and reviewing the details of the dive. The cave system they were about to explore was known for its narrow passages and deep waters, but it was a challenge they were all ready to face. They entered the water calmly, descending into the depths as a team, admiring the stunning underwater landscape. The group began their descent, moving carefully toward the entrance of the cave. As they neared the opening, they noticed something unusual: movement in the water. At first, they thought it was just a fish or some other sea life, but then they saw the unmistakable shape of a large tiger shark gliding toward them. The shark was initially calm, swimming near them without showing any signs of aggression. The group, used to encountering sharks during their dives, kept their distance but did not feel threatened. However, as the group approached the narrow entrance to the cave, the shark suddenly turned aggressive. It circled them, moving closer with a sense of urgency. Sarah, focused on getting through the cave's narrow entrance, accidentally became separated from the group. As she entered the cave, the shark saw its opportunity and attacked. It moved quickly, biting Sarah in the abdomen with terrifying force. Sarah immediately felt the immense pressure of the shark's jaws sinking into her abdomen. The pain was sharp and intense, and she struggled to push the shark off. She tried to swim backward, but the narrow walls of the cave trapped her, leaving no room to escape. The water around her turned red as blood began to pour from her wounds. Sarah's heart raced as she struggled to move, but the shark had already made its move. It circled her, staying just out of reach while sensing her vulnerability. Mark, noticing the blood trail in the water, quickly realized something was wrong. He looked in Sarah's direction and saw her struggling in the cave. He immediately swam toward her, trying to reach her as quickly as possible. But the shark had already moved in for another strike. The water was murky with blood, and the visibility was limited. Mark tried to push the shark away, but his efforts were in vain. The shark was relentless, attacking with brutal precision. It was clear that it wasn't just defending its territory, but hunting. Amanda and Ethan, hearing the commotion and noticing the blood in the water, knew they had to act fast. They tried to move closer, but the shark's aggressive behavior made it dangerous for them to approach. Mark managed to grab hold of Sarah, but it was too late. She was badly injured, and the shark had already done its damage. Mark tried to pull Sarah back to the surface, but the water was clouded with blood and the situation was rapidly worsening. With the shark still circling them, the group knew they had no time to waste. They decided to surface immediately, leaving Sarah's body behind. The shark, sensing the change in their behavior, circled once more before retreating into the deeper waters. The divers ascended quickly, reaching the surface with heavy hearts. They were devastated by what had just happened, knowing that they couldn't save Sarah in time. Once on the surface, the group contacted the yacht crew, who were still nearby. The crew scrambled to prepare for the emergency and rushed to bring the divers back on board. By the time they returned to the boat, the reality of the attack had set in. Sarah had not survived the shark's assault. The injuries she sustained were too severe for anyone to survive. Her friends and dive partners were crushed, unable to comprehend how quickly everything had gone wrong. The tragic incident became a case of mistaken aggression. The shark had not been provoked, but instead, its attack was likely driven by confusion or territorial behavior. The group's loss was felt deeply by everyone who knew Sarah. She had been an experienced diver, passionate about the underwater world and its creatures. But this encounter proved how unpredictable and dangerous nature could be. In the aftermath, the incident raised awareness about the risks of diving in shark-prone areas, even for experienced divers. The Bahamas, known for its stunning underwater ecosystems, became a reminder of the fragile line between exploration and danger. The group, traumatized by the loss, took time to mourn and process the tragedy. For Mark, Amanda, and Ethan, the memory of that day would never fade, and they would forever carry the weight of their friend's death. In January 2022, Sarah Wells, a 29-year-old graphic designer from California, decided to take a break from her busy life and embark on an adventure in Fiji. Known for its breathtaking beaches and crystal-clear waters, Fiji was the perfect place for Sarah to relax and unwind. Sarah had always been drawn to the ocean, and her love for marine life led her to join a guided snorkeling tour during her vacation. She had snorkeled in various locations before, but this trip would be different, as she was looking forward to seeing the vibrant coral reefs and abundant sea life that the Fijian waters were famous for. Sarah was an adventurous spirit, eager to explore new places and learn more about the world beneath the surface. A self-proclaimed ocean enthusiast, she had always been fascinated by marine animals and the underwater world. She had watched countless documentaries on ocean life and dreamed of swimming with dolphins and turtles. Despite her enthusiasm for marine life, Sarah was always cautious and respected the dangers of the ocean. She trusted the guides and believed in the importance of following safety protocols when snorkeling. The tour group was made up of several tourists, all eager to experience the beauty of Fiji's coral reefs. They were guided by experienced professionals who ensured that all participants followed proper safety measures and understood how to interact with the marine life they might encounter. As the group set out into the water, Sarah felt a sense of calm and excitement. The water was warm and the reef below was teeming with colorful fish and vibrant corals. It was exactly as she had imagined it would be, and she couldn't wait to explore more. However, things took a sudden and tragic turn as the group continued to explore the reef. While snorkeling, the group's splashing caught the attention of a 9-foot bull shark. The shark, drawn by the commotion in the water, appeared unexpectedly. The group had been taught to stay calm and not to disturb the animals, but one of the tourists panicked and swam too quickly, disturbing the shark's space. The shark, feeling threatened and agitated, reacted swiftly. It charged toward the group, and in the chaos it latched onto Sarah's leg with terrifying force. Sarah was caught off guard by the shark's sudden attack. Her screams were barely audible over the noise of the water as the shark dragged her under. Panic set in as she struggled to free herself from the shark's grip. Despite her best efforts to fight back, the shark's powerful bite and the pressure of being pulled under the water made escape nearly impossible. Witnessing her struggles, the group was in shock, unable to process what was happening. The tour guides, trained for emergencies, quickly reacted and moved the group toward safety. They managed to pull the remaining tourists out of the water and away from the danger, but Sarah was already seriously injured. Despite their efforts, Sarah's injuries were severe. Blood stained the water, and Sarah was unconscious from the shock of the attack. The guides immediately signaled for the boat to return to them, and within moments the crew rushed to assist. They quickly lifted Sarah out of the water and onto the boat, but it was clear she was in critical condition. The boat sped toward shore, with the crew doing everything they could to stabilize Sarah. Despite their efforts, her wounds were too deep. The shark's bite had caused significant damage to her leg and abdomen, and the blood loss was overwhelming. The group, still in shock, watched in silence as Sarah's condition worsened. The boat crew immediately contacted local emergency services, but the nearest hospital was too far, and the journey would take too long. It was too late to save Sarah. When they arrived at the dock, paramedics were waiting, They quickly assessed Sarah's condition, but confirmed what everyone feared. Her injuries were fatal. Sarah had passed away before they could provide any further medical help. The group was devastated. What had begun as an exciting adventure had quickly turned into a tragedy no one could have anticipated. In the aftermath, the incident sent shockwaves throughout the local community and the tourism industry. The authorities issued a temporary ban on snorkeling in the area for several weeks as they reassessed safety protocols and shark activity. The tragic event became a stark reminder of the dangers of snorkeling in waters where sharks were known to inhabit. Local authorities worked to revise safety measures for future excursions, ensuring that tourists would be better prepared and more aware of the risks. Sarah's death left a profound impact on her friends, family, and fellow tourists who had witnessed the tragic attack. Her passion for the ocean and marine life had led her to this fateful trip, and though she had lived a life filled with adventure and exploration, her story ended in the very water she had loved so much. The memory of that day lingered, serving as a reminder of the unpredictability of nature and the delicate balance between humans and the wild. In January 2022, a team of 6 experienced sailors participated in the prestigious Cape to Rio yacht race, a grueling challenge that stretched across the waters off the coast of South Africa. This race, known for its fierce competition and difficult conditions, was a highlight for many sailors, and the team had been preparing for months. Their yacht was in top condition, and the crew members were all seasoned professionals with years of experience in competitive sailing. Among the crew was David McLeod, a 32-year-old sailor from Cape Town, South Africa. David had been sailing since his youth, growing up near the ocean and developing a deep connection with the sea. His expertise in navigation and his calm demeanor under pressure had earned him a solid reputation in the sailing community. David was known for his quick thinking and problem-solving skills, especially during difficult and dangerous situations at sea. He had participated in several long-distance races before, but this one was especially significant to him, as he was racing with some of his closest friends. The crew was composed of seasoned sailors, each with their areas of expertise. There was the captain, Mark Stevenson, who had led many yacht races in the past, and the rest of the crew included 2 navigators, a helmsman, a deckhand, and a first mate. The team was well prepared for the challenges of the race and had trained hard to handle the unpredictable conditions of the open sea. The Cape to Rio race was known for its difficulty, but the team was confident in their abilities. The race was underway, and the crew sailed through the waves of the South Atlantic, navigating through the night as they made their way toward Rio de Janeiro. The conditions were challenging, with strong winds and rough seas, but the team was experienced enough to manage the yacht effectively. They had been sailing for hours when disaster struck. Out of nowhere, a massive great white shark collided with the hull of their yacht. The impact was sudden and violent, and the crew felt the boat shudder as the rudder was damaged. The yacht lost some control and the crew scrambled to regain their bearings, trying to keep the boat steady. Before they could fully recover from the initial strike, a second attack from the shark hit the hull again, puncturing it and causing the boat to flood. Panic set in as the crew tried to keep the boat afloat and make necessary repairs. Amid the chaos, David McLeod was securing the sails when he lost his footing and fell into the water. The crew immediately shouted for him, but the shark saw this as an opportunity. It attacked quickly, pulling David under the water before anyone could reach him. His screams were heard, but they were drowned out by the roar of the waves and the chaos of the moment. The crew, in shock from the attack, scrambled to assess the situation. The boat was flooding rapidly, and the damage to the hull made it nearly impossible to keep the yacht afloat. In the chaos of trying to maintain control of the vessel, the crew knew their priority was to get to safety. They attempted to make repairs as quickly as possible, but the damage was significant, and the situation was growing more desperate by the second. As the team worked together to handle the flooding and the wrecked rudder, their thoughts kept returning to David. His screams still echoed in their minds, and they all knew that he had been pulled underwater by the shark. They tried desperately to call out for him, but it was hopeless. The shark had taken him, and there was nothing they could do. The reality of the situation set in, and it became clear that they had lost one of their own. The crew managed to stabilize the yacht long enough to navigate back to safety. The repairs they attempted on the boat were temporary, but they were able to limp back toward shore. The captain, Mark Stevenson, kept the crew focused on the task at hand. They needed to get back to the nearest port as quickly as possible to ensure their survival. The boat's damage had left them vulnerable, and they couldn't afford to waste any more time. Once they reached land, emergency services were waiting. The crew members were in a state of shock and exhaustion, and it was clear they had witnessed something traumatic. The loss of David McLeod weighed heavily on them, and they could not shake the horror of seeing their teammate dragged away by the shark. His body was never recovered, leaving a permanent void on the team. The authorities quickly began investigating the shark attacks. The initial strike on the yacht, along with the second attack that caused the boat to flood, was deemed a case of mistaken aggression. The shark had likely been curious at first, but became agitated when the boat disrupted its space. In the end, the shark's behavior led to the tragic loss of life. The death of David McLeod became a point of focus for the sailing community. His loss was deeply felt by those who knew him. As a dedicated sailor and a respected member of the sailing community, David's death left a gap that could never be filled. His expertise and quick thinking had always been an asset to the team, and the crew was devastated to lose him in such a violent and unexpected way. In the aftermath of the incident, the Cape to Rio yacht race officials revised their safety protocols. The tragic attack brought attention to the risks of sailing in areas with large shark populations. The authorities in South Africa began to investigate shark behavior more closely and took steps to ensure the safety of future races. The yacht crew members, although grateful to have survived, would forever carry the trauma of that fateful day and the loss of their teammate. In April 2022, James Carter, an experienced environmental research diver, was conducting a study on coral reefs near the Great Barrier Reef, one of the world's most renowned marine ecosystems. James had dedicated much of his life to studying the health of coral reefs and the effects of climate change on marine environments. A marine biologist by training, James had spent over a decade working in the field, diving in various parts of the world to gather critical data for his research. He was passionate about the ocean, especially its diverse and delicate ecosystems. James was part of a small team of researchers working in the waters off the coast of Australia. Their mission was to monitor the health of the coral reefs and collect data on the surrounding marine life. The Great Barrier Reef, home to an incredible variety of fish, plants, and other creatures, had long been a focus of environmental conservation efforts. James and his team were deeply committed to their work, hoping that their research would help to protect the reef from the harmful effects of pollution, overfishing, and climate change. The team, which consisted of 4 divers, had been diving together for several years. They were all highly skilled, well-trained, and familiar with the risks associated with their work. They had conducted numerous research dives in the area, gathering data on the health of the coral, studying the behavior of fish species, and examining how changes in water temperature affected the reef ecosystem. Despite their extensive experience, they knew that diving in the open ocean always came with inherent dangers, particularly when it came to larger predators like sharks. On the day of the incident, the team was diving near a well-known reef site known for its vibrant marine life. The water was calm and visibility was clear, making it an ideal day for data collection. The divers were collecting coral samples and recording information when suddenly a massive shadow appeared beneath them. James, who was leading the group, noticed the shape first, a large 14-foot great white shark swimming silently toward them. At first, the shark did not seem aggressive, and the team continued their work, assuming the animal was simply passing by. However, the shark soon turned toward the group, its movements becoming more deliberate. James, realizing the danger, began signaling to his team to slowly ascend, hoping to avoid provoking the animal. But before they could react, the shark charged at James with incredible speed. It attacked him without warning, latching onto his arm with its powerful jaws. The team, in shock, immediately began a rescue operation, trying to pull James away from the shark. The shark, showing no signs of retreating, continued its attack. Its strong jaws tore through James's arm, severing it with a force that left his body in agony. The predator's strikes were relentless, and they continued to bite into James's body as the team desperately worked to pull him back to the boat. The water around them turned red with blood, and James struggled to stay conscious, but the trauma from the shark's attack was severe. The team's efforts to save him were valiant, but the shark's aggressive behavior and territorial instincts made it nearly impossible for them to free him in time. The team eventually managed to pull James away from the shark, but the damage had already been done. As they hurriedly made their way back toward the boat, they could see the extent of the injury. James's arm was gone and his body was covered in multiple deep bites from the shark's powerful jaws. Blood filled the water around them, making the situation even more desperate. The shark had shown relentless aggression, and despite the team's best efforts to protect James, the attack had been swift and brutal. As the team reached the boat, the crew immediately began to help them bring James aboard. His body was limp, and he was barely conscious, his face pale from the loss of blood. They quickly bandaged what they could, but it was clear that the damage was beyond their control. Despite their best efforts, James was slipping away. His breathing was shallow, and his pulse was weak. They radioed for help, but they were still miles from the nearest medical facility, and the boat was moving too slowly to reach help in time. The dive team tried to stabilize James as much as they could, but it was apparent that he wouldn't survive the injuries. The shock of the attack, the rapid blood loss, and the severity of his wounds meant there was little anyone could do. James's team stayed by his side, trying to comfort him in his final moments. They knew how much he loved the ocean, how dedicated he had been to his work, and how much he had wanted to protect the marine life that had fascinated him for so long. As they reached the shore, emergency responders were waiting. They had been alerted to the situation, but it was too late. By the time they reached the medical team, James had already passed away from the severe trauma. The research team was devastated, unable to come to terms with the loss of their colleague and friend. James had been the heart of their efforts, the one who pushed them to explore the deeper, more dangerous areas of the reef. His passion for marine conservation had driven the team to pursue groundbreaking research, and now, in an instant, everything had changed. The attack became a turning point for both the research community and the local authorities. The shark's aggressive behavior was believed to be driven by its territorial instincts, as the waters around the Great Barrier Reef were home to many species of sharks, including great whites. While shark attacks were rare in the area, the incident led to a re-evaluation of diving protocols and safety measures. The team had followed standard procedures, but the sudden nature of the attack highlighted how unpredictable and dangerous these animals could be. The research team, unable to continue their studies in such a traumatic environment, halted their project. They needed time to mourn and process the loss of their colleague. James's death left a deep emotional impact on all of them. The bond they had built over years of diving together was shattered, and they knew that they would never be the same. The team decided to honor James's memory by continuing the work he had started, but with new safety measures in place. Local authorities also re-evaluated their approach to marine safety, particularly when it came to research and recreational diving in shark-populated areas. The tragic loss of James Carter served as a stark reminder of the dangers that come with working in the ocean, especially in territories inhabited by large predators. The team, now forever changed by the loss, would never forget the man who had dedicated his life to studying and protecting the very creatures that had taken him from them. In March 2023, Carlos Ortega, a 38-year-old avid solo kayaker from Buenos Aires, Argentina, decided to embark on a thrilling adventure along the less-traveled waters off the coast of Argentina. Carlos had been kayaking for most of his life and had explored many remote and challenging waters around the world. His love for the ocean and the peace it brought him had been a lifelong passion. He was known for his courage and adventurous spirit, frequently seeking out isolated and unexplored places to paddle. The freedom of kayaking alone in quiet, untouched waters was something that gave Carlos a deep sense of satisfaction. Carlos had planned this kayaking trip for weeks, researching the area around the Valdez Peninsula, known for its dramatic cliffs and rich marine life. It was a place where few kayakers ventured, making it the perfect spot for Carlos to experience nature at its rawest. He was familiar with the dangers of the ocean, having paddled in various regions known for large predators. However, his years of experience had made him confident in his ability to handle any situation. His kayak, a sturdy and reliable model, had been chosen specifically for such trips, and he carried with him the necessary safety equipment, including a life vest, whistle, and waterproof communication device. As Carlos paddled through the calm, turquoise waters, he marveled at the breathtaking surroundings. The sky was clear and the water shimmered under the midday sun. The peaceful silence of the water, interrupted only by the sound of his paddle cutting through the surface, was exactly what Carlos had hoped for. He had no immediate plans and was simply enjoying the solitude and connection with nature. While Carlos was paddling through a narrow channel, he noticed a shadow moving beneath the water. At first, he didn't think much of it. He had encountered seals and other marine creatures before and assumed it was just another curious seal. However, as the shadow came closer, he noticed that it was much larger than a seal. Before he could react, the water around him stirred violently. A large, great white shark lunged at the kayak, biting the side of it with incredible force. The impact of the shark's bite caused Carlos's kayak to flip over, throwing him into the cold water. For a moment, Carlos was disoriented. He struggled to keep his head above water, gasping for air as the weight of the situation hit him. His kayak, now drifting away, was no longer within reach. The shock of the attack quickly wore off, and Carlos instinctively swam toward his kayak, hoping to regain control and get back to safety. However, as he swam towards his overturned kayak, the shark struck again. It lunged at him with terrifying speed, grabbing him by the torso. The shark's powerful jaws clamped down on him, pulling him under the water. Carlos struggled with all his might, trying to break free, but the shark's grip was too strong. The water around him darkened as he was dragged deeper, and his attempts to escape became futile. The attack had been swift, and Carlos's attempts to fight back had been futile. The force of the shark's bite and the underwater currents made it nearly impossible to break free. His body struggled against the shark's powerful hold, but there was little he could do to escape. The powerful jaws of the shark had already inflicted deep wounds, and blood loss caused his head to spin. As Carlos was pulled underwater, the world above him became distant and muffled. His strength began to fade and breathing became labored. In the depths of the ocean, with the weight of the water pressing down, Carlos's movements slowed. The force of the attack was overwhelming, and soon his body grew weaker and unconscious. Carlos was quickly submerged and dragged further from the surface. By the time the shark released its grip, his body drifted beneath the waves. His kayak, now a distance away, continued to float on the surface, a stark reminder of the tragic turn the day had taken. Up above, the water remained calm. The peaceful surroundings that Carlos had once enjoyed, now forever marred by the violence that had taken place just beneath the surface. His kayak, still floating nearby, seemed like an unreachable lifeline. The distant sound of the waves lapping against the kayak was a cruel reminder that Carlos was trapped beneath the water, far from safety. The rest of the day was spent in confusion and panic. The other kayakers nearby who had not witnessed the attack were unaware of what had just happened. They noticed the absence of Carlos's kayak and began searching, calling out for him as they circled the area. But it was too late. The vastness of the open ocean meant that finding him in time was impossible. Carlos had been pulled too far, and there was little chance of recovery before the shark had finished its attack. As the hours passed, the search efforts began. Local authorities were notified, and a rescue operation was launched, but the team was faced with the overwhelming challenge of covering a vast expanse of open water. The search parties scoured the coastline, but the odds of finding Carlos alive were slim. His body was carried away by the currents, and despite the best efforts of the authorities, it was never recovered. The water had claimed him, and the shark attack that had taken his life left a haunting memory for those who were involved. The news of Carlos's death quickly spread among the local community and the kayaking world. His loss was devastating, as he had been known for his expertise in the sport and his passion for exploring remote areas. He was a dedicated kayaker who had spent years perfecting his craft and pushing himself to new limits. His tragic death served as a stark reminder of the risks of venturing into the open water, especially in areas known to have large predators like great white sharks. In the aftermath of the attack, local authorities reassessed their safety measures for kayakers and divers. The great white shark, a known predator in the area, had attacked with such aggression that many questioned whether the safety protocols in place were sufficient. Authorities issued new guidelines for kayaking in the region, emphasizing the need for greater awareness and caution when in shark-prone areas. The kayaking community was deeply affected by Carlos's loss, with many of his fellow kayakers mourning his death. His friends and family struggled to understand how someone so skilled and experienced could fall victim to such a brutal attack. Carlos's love for the ocean and his dedication to environmental conservation have made him a respected figure in the community. His death left a permanent mark, and his story became a reminder of the unpredictable and dangerous nature of the sea.